live. We are recording. So, welcome everyone. My name is Emily, and I am going to be your facilitator for the next 8 weeks. I'm going to jump to a slide just to kind of give you a little, I guess, a little more context. So hang on as we head into our presentation. So let me know, you can give me a verbal if you can see my screen. Yes or no?
I can see it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Maybe the better question
Good.
is there anyone that cannot see my screen? Okay, fabulous. All right. So I'm gonna make my there we go. Let's see if I can do this. All right. So welcome to 8 weeks of online learning with fellow and aspiring instructors across the US and Canada. Oh, don't make me do the mute thing, guys. I've got noise. Everything you do, from your typing to your nose blowing, hopefully into your elbow, can be heard and amplified. Anyway, so we are really thrilled that you guys have chosen to come to Lifetime Academy. And I want to talk a little bit about what is unique about this program, but many, many things. But first, let's welcome everybody. We have 70 instructors and or aspiring instructors who have joined us for this program to be part of it. And we have everybody from the East Coast to the West Coast, and including Canada. Yay! We've got our neighbors to the north. The Lifetime Academy, as hopefully you know by now, is a program that is run through Lifetime, the Healthy Way of Life company, also known as Lifetime Fitness. But if you are not a Lifetime member, that has nothing to do with our academy. It is completely a separate entity that we run as a school. And one thing, if you are interested in teaching at Lifetime, we do, as you learn through your enrollment process, have the opportunity to get an audition at Lifetime, and you may or may not want to do that. But I want everyone to know that this program is not just about teaching at Lifetime, it's about becoming a great instructor. So I just saw, I'm sorry, a little note from Danny. She's asking if anyone else is having audio issues and does not hear anything. Does anyone else have audio issues?
No.
Okay. I'm going to quickly type to her.
I had to ask for it to dial in with using my internet to hear audio.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned in the email. So forgive me, but you would want me to do the same for you.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay, are we in? Danny, is that you? Okay, hopefully we're good. Okay, so anyway, regardless of where you want to teach, Stages is a third-party certification. So Stages, the certification with which you're going to walk away, is a Stages Power Essentials specifically, which we'll talk a little bit about more in a moment. Specifically is a third-party entity, not affiliated with Lifetime, but we selected at Lifetime Stages education program as the education partner because of the quality of the content. But what you will be getting, as in addition to what you would normally get through the Stages education, is some additional things that we at the Lifetime Academy think are really, really important as well, and including an opportunity to spend 8 weeks with this material. So I know we had some questions, a lot of you had some questions. It's important to understand that although your modules, some of you blew through them, I don't blame you, I did the same thing the first time I saw it. You will get a lot more from the webinars. So going through this webinar process, you're going to learn a lot more deeply. It's very easy to kind of blast through and do it, but we want you to retain this information. We want real learning to occur. That's my goal throughout these webinars. So without further ado, let's dive in a little bit more. So first of all, you may be going, who the heck is talking? Well, that ridiculous person in the pink wig is indeed me. Um, but I wanted to just quickly introduce you to me as your partner in this. I will be helping you through this. My name is Emily Booth, and I have been teaching indoor cycling for well over 20 years, something I don't want to admit, because then you'll start doing math, and then you'll realize that, you know, I started teaching when I was 5, and anyway, but with that in mind, I believe that we are never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream. So whether you've been teaching yourself for 20 years or more, or you're someone that has just only gotten started, we can always grow, we can always dream, we can always set goals. And so a little bit about me, again, I am the National Education Manager for Indoor Cycle for Lifetime. I've been with Lifetime Fitness for about 17 years. Before that, I was with 24 Hour Fitness. And I have been, you know, this was my high school, college hobby that became the love of my life, in addition to the man in the picture with me. But I believe that I came from a performance background, so I have a degree in music and theater performance, but I'm also a lifelong endurance athlete, as evidenced by the picture on the left. That was my PR marathon. That was a really major goal that I had set for myself, and I accomplished it. And so I share that as a result of saying that we can say things, we want to do something, but until we take the action to do it, it doesn't really become possible. So I'm so happy that you have chosen to take action to move toward a new goal. Over on the right, you'll see that my other love in life, besides the man next to me, is going to, I'm an old raver, and I still do this on a regular basis. In fact, I was supposed to be at Ultra Miami Festival that got canceled. On the bottom right, you'll see me in Ibiza, because I just went there this summer. And in the middle, that was another goal being accomplished when my partner in crime set the world record on the Colorado Trail. So I tell you this because I believe in goals, I believe in dreams, I believe in music, and more than anything, I love the way that indoor cycling brings all of those things together for not only for me, but I'm sure for you. So goals are super important, and we're going to talk a lot about goals throughout this process, not only for you, but also for the way that you communicate them and the power of them in communication to your participants. So over the next weeks, I want to get to know you better. Typically we have 25-ish students, and we sit in this call talking about each one of you. But, and I would love to do that, but then we would be here and we'd be doing introductions for the first 2 webinars. So I hope I'll get to know you better, a little bit better, but through the survey that you took today, this is what I learned. Isn't this awesome? And if you haven't taken the survey yet, please do. It was really interesting. But 62% of you are lifetime members and not team members, which means you got into this program because you love an instructor so much that you chose to pursue a certification path. 11% of you are lifetime team members, which means you are already an employee. I'm going to stop that really quickly to say if you are having background noise, we want to make sure that we mute. So if you are struggling with keeping that your background noise to a minimum, we'll please mute. Okay. 11% of you are lifetime team members. So you are employees that are either seeking a second certification, which is awesome. So maybe you've already been certified by Schwinn or by Mad Dog Spinning, but you've chosen to get a renewed certification or to expand your education. And 27% of you are neither members nor team members, which I love. Welcome. We're so excited because I believe the fitness community is one big family, and I believe a rising tide lifts all boats. So whether you choose to work for Lifetime or anywhere else in the industry, better educated fitness professionals make us all better, and we're super excited that you are here. All right, 91% of you are taking your very first indoor cycling certification. I'm so excited by that. Oh my gosh. So that means 9% of you are certified in another program. And again, as I mentioned, super excited to expand your knowledge. 25% of you are already certified in group fitness by ACE, so the American Council on Exercise, or AFA, the Athletics and Fitness Association of America. Those are the 2 big national group fitness certifications, but that means 75% of you are totally dipping your toe in for the very first time, which is amazing. 27% of you identify as avid cyclists, so that means you go out, you ride on the roads, the mountains, or the trails, or triathletes. 40% of you are recreational riders. Maybe you chill out with your kids or your significant others or yourself on the bike path on your cruiser and have a good time, but you've never really ridden for, we'll say, specific cycling fitness. And then 33% of you are indoor only, which is awesome. All of it is great because, as my friend, not my friend, but my favorite blogger, Bike Snob, says, if you ride a bicycle, even when you don't have to, it means you're a cyclist, whether it is indoor or outdoor. 50% of you, this I found very interesting as I was doing the, our statistics on our survey. 50% are interested in teaching athletic and 50% are interested in teaching choreographed. So that is super exciting. And trust me, I have content for both of you and you're both gonna learn from each other. And I think that the essence of the science of this is going to serve you no matter what you do. And the art will also serve you. 40% of you have a bike at home you can use. This is important. I know we're in really challenging times right now. 60% of you do not. That's okay. We're going to figure a way around this. And part of this is going to be getting creative. So I'll be challenged too. But this is great that some of you, at least 40% of you do have a bike at home you can use. The rest of you have a lot of experience. I'm guessing you didn't join into this certification because you've never done indoor cycling. So I'm going to ask you to think a lot back on your memories and then to, of course, to participate in some things. Hopefully we'll be back in a club or somewhere we can use it before this is over. Fingers crossed all around. And then last but not least, definitely not least, because we're all about the music, 60% of you are users of Spotify, while 20% use Apple Music, 9% are using Amazon, and the remaining 11% are using either some other source or you don't have a streaming service yet. So yay, let's take a look at each other once again now that we know where we are. How are we doing so far?
Good.
Good? Okay.
So far, so good.
All right,
Doing good.
everybody, sound is okay. We're not having the echo. We got rid of it. Again, just be kind to your fellow man right now, fellow women, and make sure that, as in all things, like keeping 6 feet, oh my gosh, Freudian slip, 6 feet of separation. We're also muting our phones when necessary. Okay, super cool. Moving on. So let's jump back in. I just need to see I need human contact of some kind. I need to see your faces every now and then. All right. So that being said, now let's dive in a little bit deeper. What we are talking about is goals. And you have set a goal, and anything, in my opinion, worth achieving is worth a little bit of being uncomfortable. One of the things I didn't mention is one of my favorite things to do for fun is to run ultra distance events like 100-mile running events. And again, I bring these things up because I have learned more from that about setting goals and what it means to suffer in order to achieve something that you never thought you could do, more than anything else. But I've also watched over these years so many individuals like yourselves achieve new goals, and by being able to have a plan, execute that plan, maybe stretch it just a little bit, but within the realm of what's possible, but just a little outside of where we're comfortable. Learning is not a comfortable process. And for some of you, you're going to find that in the beginning, all the science stuff is like super easy for you. You're like, yeah, I got that. I don't even know what this is about. And others of you are going to be very uncomfortable with it. Then most of the time, the way this works is then we get to the art part, and everybody that thought the science was easy starts freaking out about the art. And the rest of you are going to go, oh, I got this. I know, I understand music. I understand these things. So just know that when you see something that's uncomfortable for you, rather than ducking from it, embrace it. Some of you are going to find that the style that we're going to talk about indoor cycling and the many styles that now exist. Again, this specific cycling certification, as I mentioned to one of our participants today, is this particular certification is the Power Essentials, but Stages does offer 3 certifications now. One of which is called Stages 1, which is really the basics, energy systems, basic science, and basic class construction, not necessarily a deep dive into power. On the other side of it, we have something called Stages Beats, where we do, we still dive into the science because it is the first rhythm certification, and is just brand new launched this year, that really dives in a little more deeply to the choreography based and the rhythm based formats. And then Power Essentials, which is what you are taking, is going to dig deep into the science of using the power zones, and how that affects writer results and goal setting and class creation. And for all of you that just took a, like, lost your breath and went, but you just said 50% of us want to do rhythm. I know. And we're going to talk about that too, because Mama here has access to all of it. And I'm going to make sure that as part of our goal, we get you the information that you need. Now, just a side note, for those of you that specifically wanted to work for Lifetime, and you know that we do have 3 distinct formats, one of which is a choreography-based format. If you were to go to work for Lifetime, you would still, and that goes for all 3 of our signature formats. We do in-house training, but that is not something that you pay for. That's something that you would go through after the point of hire. And again, it is a much shorter process, and we just want to make sure that obviously our performers, as we call them at Lifetime, understand the basics of each format. What I can promise you is this: if you put your heart and soul into learning this material, whatever format or style you choose to teach, you will be extremely well prepared. So I'm gonna hit a lot of different elements. I teach this as a Stages Master Educator as the Power Certification regularly, or Power Essentials, but I also am going to be pulling in elements as part of your Academy training that are going to serve you no matter what you want to do. So again, I'm going to stop and check in. How are we doing so far? Everybody feel okay?
Yeah.
All right, so if I can see your faces for a second, where am I? Because we're 50-50. Well, sort of 50-50. It was a little complicated because some of you said both, which I love. How many of you are like, oh, I'm all in for the athletic, using the power meter, I'm a cyclist formats? Yeah? Where are my choreography peeps? Who's like, I don't really know, I'm kind of on the fence. Show it all. Okay, good. And I bet you this is what I've seen happen, is that some of you are going to go, wow, I didn't know that was so cool. And you may find yourself leaning in a direction that you didn't think about prior. And others are going to say, nope, I'm exactly in the lane I want to be. Or you're just going to be a little curious. And that is awesome. So I'll be curious. I'll have to start with the survey and then see where we end up at the end of 8 weeks and see if we're all still there. So very exciting. All right, moving back. So we talked about goals. Now let's talk a little bit about what your goals are. So, or what I'm hoping what you hope to gain. But this is what I know you will gain if you put the time into digging into not only the materials in your online learning, which is really just scratching the surface, but the webinars that we're going to really dive in deeply together, as well as the Q&A sessions that I'm going to set up. Those are optional, but I think that, hey, what the hell else do we have to do right now? So why not? Laughter is highly encouraged. Off-color jokes, laughter, all of it. I'm in. But so you're going to definitely learn the why behind proper bike setup, the biomechanics, and the benefits. We're going to talk about that tonight, actually. Then we're going to dig a little bit, maybe a lot of bit for some of you, into the exercise science and the benefits of exercise science, how it applies to indoor cycling. We're going to talk about the ins and outs of the bike technology, and that's something we're going to do tonight. We're going to talk music selection and delivery. I'm going to leave that one for a little bit later. I know you want to get there first, but we've got to learn how to bake the cookie before we learn how to frost it, right? I know. We're going to talk about effective coaching and cueing, as well as how to develop simple sets, and that's something that we use in Stages. Oops, I've got somebody that's talking that's not part of us.
Whatever, anything I do, I'll mention you gotta go.
So we need a 531 area code needs to mute. I can still see who's talking. Busted! But we love you anyway. Okay. Music selection and delivery. Effective coaching and cueing. How to utilize and develop simple sets. That is the Stages Power Essentials methodology, but I got to tell you, I love it. And if you want to teach either Power Cycle or Edge Cycle at Lifetime, you will be so well prepared by doing this. If you want to teach an athletic style class, if you yourself are a cyclist, this is going to make perfect sense if you've ever done any kind of specific athletic workouts. If you have done sports, if you've run track, if you've ever trained for a marathon, when you start to dig into this a little bit, this is going to make so much sense to you. For those of you that have just done song to song, hey, for this song, we're going to do this, and this song, we're going to do that. This is going to be a little challenging for you, and that's good. Again, embrace the challenge. We're also going to give other ideas for class design if that's not your jam. Once again, exhale for my folks that are in that other that want to teach a little bit more in a choreographed manner or toward terrain. We're going to talk about heart rate too, how it works with what we do and sometimes when it doesn't. We're going to talk about effectively using power. Right? That means power, the production of work on the bike, and how that translates to something we call power zones, how that relates to goal setting, and something called anchoring time and effort. In other words, you can only work as hard as you can for a specific period of time. Anchoring time and effort is a really big deal. And then, of course, the best practices that go with teaching with power meters in class settings. And for those of you that have that AFA or ACE, you're going to get a bunch of CECs for this. So that's awesome. And last but not least, the essentials of creating and delivering safe, fun, effective rides, no matter the style. So before we get into again, a little bit of the housekeeping, let's jump back in, check in, FaceTime. How we doing?
Doing good.
Todo está bien. All right. Very, very good. The last time I started this, I was coming back from Spain, so I'm a little sad. I had just come back from Ibiza on our last start. I'm probably a little bit more coherent than I was that first webinar back after Ibiza. So lucky you. Probably more than I would have been if I was coming back from Ultrafest Miami as well. Okay, so now we're going to dig in a little bit more to our basically using the online platform of Teachable. So it is accessible on your mobile device or your laptop or desktop. I personally think it's a lot better to use it on your computer, but you can have those materials. So one thing you need to know is that now that you have those, that is your online textbook, if you will, and it will sometimes be updated in the future. So they're going to keep that current, and that's yours for always, right? That is your content to have. So I find it's always helpful to go back and review. If you were that person like myself, and I think my colleague Marnie, who might be ghosting here, also a Stages Master Educator. Marnie, are you there? You can unmute.
I'm here, lady.
There she is. Okay. I will be calling on her a lot. She's just bored, but she is a brilliant cycling mind and one of our lifetime master trainers, as well as again a master educator for Stages. Anyway, we have those online textbooks, and if anything changes, Marnie will be the one that lets you know, because she scours them I think on a daily basis. But she will have that accessible to you all the time. If you have any trouble accessing it, please email me. I know for some reason some of the links that you got weren't working, and then we're working when I sent you this other link. So hopefully you've all been able to do that, but you'll use your credentials to log in. My suggestion, if you don't have some kind of a setup on your computer that locks your passwords and logins, put it somewhere you may get comfortable. It'll keep you logged in for a while, and then maybe you don't come back for a couple weeks, and then it's gone and you don't remember your password and it's a problem, or it's just a hassle. So just make sure you write down your login credentials so that you can get on there. If you log in from your second device, you'll also have to confirm that device, right? So if you have your log into that from your phone, it's going to send you that email that says, please confirm the login from a new device. Maybe you've already done that, some of you. As I mentioned, viewing the materials on the desktop will allow you to view them in the videos in full screen, and you'll get a little better experience. Obviously, read and review the modules. Again, read and review. There's a lot in there. It's very easy to skim through and click next, next, next. Yay, I'm certified. No, that is not how it works. You will want to make sure you really understand. And again, multiple exposures to information typically are the things that give us the greatest comprehension. So don't be afraid. I've got somebody, Lucy, if you can mute, please. We've got, I hear pages turning, bless you. You're probably reading all your materials that you already printed out. Okay. At the end of every module, there is an assessment. I don't think it's, we had it to on the last learning platform, lucky you, it was kind of a pass-fail situation. And if you didn't pass on the second try, you were kind of a little bit in trouble. Now, I think you can just get through it and you can go through. But that being said, I always am a fan of taking a screenshot of every passing score as an insurance policy that you did it. Once complete, it gives you the option again to complete and continue on the top of the screen, and that will be how you unlock the next module. All right. Any questions? If you want to unmute verbally right now, I'm going to stop here and ask questions. Everybody okay with Teachable? Anyone having issues?
Did you mean that we should screenshot that we passed, or you do?
No, I would screenshot if I were you. I can't see yours. So
Okay.
yeah, it's not, I mean, I don't think they're going to have any problems with it. But just as an aside, this is our first round with a new platform, and I like this one a lot better. In the past, it was kind of an issue. So anyway, we had people that would go through it and then something happened, they forgot, they logged back in, and then it erased their scores. So we don't want that to happen. So just as, yeah, go ahead.
After you take the assessment, because I did it for the first round, and then it says like go to the next module, it doesn't allow me to go to the next module. Is there like a time frame that you set that say, okay, this day now you can go on to the next module?
No, you should actually be able to go to the next module as soon as you've completed the prior one, where it says complete and continue.
Yeah, I finished all of that, and then where it said like I did the assessment, whatever, and then it says like press here to continue, and every time I do that, it doesn't allow me to.
Okay, let me find out about that, Hannah. That should not be the case unless it does have you guys locked down. I will ask if they did that.
Okay.
Typically, we used to not have it all available all at once, which is what I think was probably confusing to some of you. Like, wow, there it is. Is that it? And you go, click, 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 click. I'm done. Yeah, I'm certified. That is not the case. But has anybody else been able to go through? I think some of you said that you did. Alyssa said, I don't know if she's here. Yeah, Lorraine, so did you like go on forward? Oh, I can't hear you, Lorraine. But some of you have gone all the way through. So Hannah, let me double check on you, okay?
Okay,
That
I
doesn't
know
sound
in like
normal.
the orientation Zoom, I was having a problem too, and Katie Reese had to fix something. I don't know if she said she would troubleshoot it. I don't know if she has yet.
Okay.
But I have emailed her and I sent a screenshot of like what I was seeing. So I don't know if that could be included in the problem or.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's an operating system. Are you on a Mac?
No, Microsoft Surface Laptop.
Okay. Maybe okay, let me figure that out. But everybody else so far so good. We've been able to advance past that assessment.
I haven't actually been able to access the modules, but I'm in contact with Katie as well. So
okay. Again, go ahead and email me and copy Katie. At this point, though, I usually seem to I'm on. This is my right now, especially right now. It's one of my primary focuses. So I will be all over that for you guys. So let me know if you guys want to actually, anybody that's having issues after this is done, send me an email. But everybody else looks like we're in a good place. So that is a positive. Okay, moving on. Okay. So a lot of you had questions about this. This is not set in stone. And the reason it's not is that I want to reserve the right to move things around a little bit if I feel like we need a little bit more or a little bit less time with a particular area. However, so what I'd really like to do is to get through enough that we have 2 weeks on music. I know you'll be so disappointed by that, right? Some of you are like, just went, yay! So that's my goal. So we may or may not get through all of the cycling science in next week. Because FTP and Power also has a lot of cycling science, but I don't want to spend so much time that those of you that are like, I hate science, get really bored with it. So we may move things around just a little bit, but it will be in a logical progression. And I will let you know ahead of time so that you know which modules you need to kind of make through. And it will flow in the order that you see. I will not put something ahead of, force you to go through more modules than you need to. But that's kind of where we are, and I can certainly send this to you at the end of our call tonight. Okay, so we got to our modules. We go through, again, I think you guys, we just talked about this, but you go to the library, open the modules. After you complete it, you'll see complete and continue, prompts you to the next module, and then there's those knowledge checks throughout. In order to receive your certificate, you must complete all the modules and all the assessments. And I want to say complete all the webinars. I can't say that that's will actually happen, but I promise you that if you don't, you will be missing a lot. And I think, hey, once again, what else have we got to do, right? You didn't sign up for this to not learn at the most. So if you miss a webinar, I am planning to, as you know, I'm recording everything. Oops, we have background noise. Davey says we have background noise and echoes. Let's try this again. I'm going to back up, Davey. You want to, the total number of modules are going to be everything you see in this, and I'll show, I'll navigate to that. Actually, I'll navigate to that right now, just so you guys can see it. So for those of you that haven't seen this yet, this is what it looks like. All right, so you get in here, you go to your getting started, and it's going to give you all of your information. Once you scroll through, you read through, you hit complete and continue, and you go through each thing, and you're not going to miss anything as long as you keep hitting complete and continue, and then you can always go back and review. So spending some time with this is important, but we'll definitely speak to it a lot in our webinars as well. And then maybe the ideal would be to go back through after we've spoken in the webinar, go back and go, okay, that's what she was talking about. Now I get this on a different level. So basically the entire course you have broken down into the welcome and pre-training information. You have Power Made Simple, communication, power defined, and bringing power to your classes, as well as some additional resources and recommended reading. And finally, your final assessment, which is 40 questions long. Mercifully, I passed. I know, right? No, just kidding. Yes, so there we go. So that is what it looks like. And that's, I'm going to check our chat one more time. So, right. And if you want to go back and look at something, you just go back, or you just click on that. So, hey, what's some recommended reading? Here are the resources that were used to create this training. By the way, a lot of these are very good books that I can recommend, specifically some. And then again, you have all these different things you can, pop around in. Again, additional reading, lots of good stuff in here. So don't be afraid to dive in again and again and again. But that's what it looks like when you go into this module. All right, so you've got those your online modules. Before I go on, I'll pause. Yes, no, good. All right, we're cooking. All right, fantastic. So now let's talk about the webinars and office hours. So I think you guys know that from your communication, but just once again, so I've said it, everybody should have received that invitation and that link. If I were you, you can, I give you a link to put it into whatever calendar system you have, just so it's there. It will be the same link every week, and it will be at the same time. Again, we want to be interactive, and as I mentioned, I am recording. I'd love for you to be here, but I will be recording and uploading to YouTube. Our office hours are to be determined per the survey results, so far it looks like we're landing on probably a Friday at noon and an evening. So I may send another thing, and I'm open to doing more than, maybe 2 or 3 per week as Q&A or office hours, to make sure we get everybody able to attend. So I will send that out very soon. I'm probably going to send out to the folks that answered. They are evenings only. About 35% of you said they can only do evenings. So we can talk about what evening would be better, whether it's like a Wednesday or a Thursday. maybe even Friday, because hey, we could have happy hour while we do it since we can't go to real happy hour. I know. But the webinars really are important. And the office hours, again, are going to be totally optional. But I think this will be a fun way for us to just spend some time talking about stuff and coming up with questions. So that is that. All right, so tonight, in the next 40 minutes here, what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about the first parts of what you learned in your first modules. If you didn't get through in there yet, now you'll be, this will be your introduction and the rest will be review. So we want to review the bike anatomy and features, how to explain them to a participant, essentially. We want to be able to recite the 5 steps of the stages fit from memory, knowing the 2 primary objectives, and understand primarily why does fit matter. So without further ado, I want to talk a little bit about who Stages is, and I see a little bit coming up in the chat, so just double check on chat. Okay, yes, I will be emailing the webinar YouTube links usually by Wednesday. So there we go. And then that is, I think, thank you, Megan, for answering a question for Davey. All right. Okay, there we go. So team Stages, and I will keep this very, very brief, but what you may or may not know is that Stages is not the new kid on the block. You may not have heard a lot about them before because they've been operating, the people that created Stages we're working with a lot of other companies that were at the foundations of some of the not just some of, but of the first spinning bike ever for Johnny G in 1994. These are the same guys. They finally created their brand with a direct indoor power meter in 2010. But these guys have been building bikes and figuring out what makes the better, how to build a better bike for over 20 years. So when they finally created the Stages brand, they started building those bikes with that direct indoor, direct power measurement, which we'll talk about later, but that was game changing. They built and designed the free motion bike, which I have in my house right now, with direct power measurement. But then they launched the outdoor power meter that in 2014 was utilized by Team Sky, who then went on to continue to win 5 Tours de France with the power meter technology. That same technology essentially that you have on the Stages bike if you're familiar with it. Stages also introduced their bike in 2015. So for those of you that are lifetime members in every one of our clubs, you should be riding this bike. It is an awesome bike. And you'll see that it's utilized by a lot of others as well. We also acquired Vismo X and launched Stages Flight, which is an on-screen metric system that I'm actually piloting in my own club here in Colorado right now. It's a really cool system of on-screen metrics. In 2017, Stages became the exclusive bike provider for Equinox, SoulCycle, and Lifetime. In 2018, they became the exclusive partner for Les Mills, and in 2019, we have launched the industry first science-based rhythm certification, which is Stages Beats. So not the new kids on the block. This is kind of who we are and the legacy that is Stages. So you are gonna be stepping into a really great program, and if you get an opportunity to work on this really great bike as well, just to give you a little idea where it came from and maybe a little pat yourself on the back for making a good choice, right? I hope so. I hope at the end of 8 weeks you decide you did. So this is the bike, and you learned about it a little bit in your modules. Anybody feel like they can identify the elements? You know, it's hard to do it without going back and forth. How many of you are like, I got this, I know this bike? Anybody? Yeah, Lorraine, she's like, I got this bike. All right, but you can't talk, we can't hear you. We'll never know. No, all right. So we're gonna assume you had it down pat. All right, so this bike has lots of elements and interesting features. So what are they? Well, we have the basic things, but what's different about them? We have what we, let's just talk about the basic frame. That's an aluminum frame, so it's nice and light. We have the the style of the frame also is very ergonomic. It's very nice. It fits a lot of riders, which we'll talk about. But another important thing is that you have over here, this is the drivetrain. So that carbon fiber belt. You have the FitLock system for both the handlebars and the seat. One of the really great things about that is they're very easy to adjust. They're very light. The handlebars are very light. You don't have to fight it. It's very quick and very easy. You have the resistance system, which is a magnetic resistance system that we'll talk a little about more in a minute. It makes it very quiet and really able to continually provide more and more resistance for the rider without it, like, you know, without it ever wearing down like an old felt belt or felt pad rather, or some of the other old school resistance systems that if you've been around long enough, you all remember with, I'm sure, great fondness. You have the sprint shift, which is something we'll talk about. That is a really cool feature at Lifetime. If you end up coming to teach at Lifetime, or if you've taken a class at Lifetime, we call it the quick shift. That was a decision made by leadership because they thought that instructors would misunderstand how to use it, because and sadly, you guys will not fall into this category, but a true sprint means having a lot of resistance pushed really fast. And they were afraid it thought people would think it just meant going fast, which it doesn't, but we'll talk about it. So we call it the quick shift at Lifetime. At Stages, we call it the sprint shift. That's the universal term for it. And then, of course, you have the EcoScreen display, which is that console on top, and the power meter lives right here on the left crank, right? You learn that in your modules, but it lives on the left crank arm. And that is a little box. If you ever go back in your club and you see this bike, you can see on the left pedal, there's this little device, and that is where the power meter lives. Okay. Some key components to think about this bike, right? All indoor cycling bikes essentially are fixed gear, which basically means the cranks are fixed to the flywheel. Unlike outside, you cannot coast, right? There is no coasting on an indoor bike because if the pedals are moving, or if the wheel is moving, the pedals are moving. They're connected. You gotta maintain control. There's something called inertia, right, that happens. And so even though this is a weighted flywheel, it's not a super heavy weighted flywheel like some of the old school bikes were, but it does help people to have a smoother pedal stroke than they might outside. But that means you always have to have enough resistance and maintain control. Also, it's helpful because of the fixed gear to have cycling shoes versus athletic shoes. So things we can talk about later, but just as an introduction to it. The carbon glide belt, it's a carbon fiber belt that really creates a quiet, smooth ride. If those of you, again, remember the old school chain driven systems that could rust and get cranky and break and need a lot of maintenance, that's gone. This belt works beautifully. The drivetrain on this bike is a dream. Super quiet and really durable. The EcoScreen console, again, super nice. Different from the free motion bike, the old power meter and old console that we used to have required a lot of batteries. So when they redesigned the bike, it actually works so that the rider actually charges the batteries in the console, which is eco-friendly and awesome. And then the magnetic system of resistance is something, as I mentioned before, that really makes things different. It's something that in the past, we had other systems of resistance that were either like two pads that would go push closer and then get really hot and then it'd wear down, or a pad that came down from the top and then that would break down and the wheel would, it was just, no bikes were consistent. So the great thing about this bike is that the resistance system makes it really consistent. And that is those, as I mentioned, you learned in your learning, 6 rare earth magnets that move toward or away from the flywheel. So, pop quiz. What other things use magnetic resistance systems? Anybody remember from their learning? Anybody remember from their learning what other things use those magnetic resistance systems? I'll give you a hint.
Roller coasters.
Yes, got it. And?
Is it a train?
Yes, exactly. High-speed trains. Good job. High-speed trains and roller coasters. So that's that magnetic resistance system. Super cool. Now, see, you're already smarter. Already smarter. All right. My work is done. Okay. So here we go. Moving on. That's a little trivia. 6, and actually, if you remember from the learning, it said 6 rare earth magnets. So they're pretty cool. The Stages power meter, as I mentioned, I live here near, or I live in Boulder, or near Boulder, and that's where the Stages factory is that builds the power meters, and I get to go up there and hang out with people all the time. And I've actually seen them making the power meters, which is super cool. And the power meter that goes on the outdoor bike is almost identical to the power meter that goes on the indoor bike. Without getting too deep into the science of this stuff, what makes this bike different and the power meter different, it is the only indoor bike that has direct measurement, which basically means that it's measuring the actual force on the crank. Other systems, other bikes that do this are guessing at the power, essentially by how fast the wheel is turning and a guess of the resistance that's on there. But we're actually measuring the force on the crank. So here for my science geeks, inside of that little box there is a strain gauge, which is what makes it so expensive. The strain gauge is really key. An accelerometer, right? So the strain gauge measures the force. The accelerometer measures the speed, right? So if you'll hear these words a lot, force times velocity. And there's also a temperature sensor in there to make sure that it understands and to adjust for changes in temperature, because that can actually impact the efficacy of the strain gauge itself. So pretty cool. It's a real power meter. And it will measure the work the rider is doing, something we'll be talking a lot about. In addition, we have the console. Norma, if you can mute, sorry. We've got, got Norma's phone. Sorry, Norma.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, you can mute, that's okay. If you can just mute, because there was some background noise. Okay, so this display, we're gonna be spending more time with this, but just the basics, right, of your Stages console, how to power it on. You push the big bottom at the center that says stage, or you can start riding and it should power up, but you just hit the button, and once you're riding and that button's on, it's gonna say USB. If you continue to ride, it's gonna go on its own to what's called warm-up mode. Or you can also just push it until it hits the warm-up mode. Let's see. Oh, okay. We'll spend, are you guys seeing my animals? Okay, let's see. Totally distracted by cats. Sorry. So as you use this console, you'll see that it has the left side for live data and the right side for average data. Super cool to use these features when you're teaching. But again, just for right now, let's look at it. You've got live data, averages of the current stage, and then you also have a light bulb and that average end button. All those are going to be important functions of using this if you choose to use this tool, if you're wanting to teach with the power meter. It gives you lots of important information. It also includes an average speed in miles per hour, and what makes that unique is that it is actually calculating it not just based on it's basically calculating how fast an average size cyclist would be traveling on a flat road in calm winds. But just like in the real world, the faster you go, the more wind resistance you get back. It actually calculates that. So it's a lot easier to go from 10 miles an hour to 20 miles an hour than it is to go from 20 to 25 or 25 to 30. So it does calculate for that. It's kind of cool. That's also a fun metric for people that really don't understand watts. But if you can give them a benchmark around speed, which will say never tell them how fast, I'm getting ahead of myself, but that's where it lives, and it's a metric not a lot of instructors use, but I think that they should. RPM, obviously, we all know what that is, revolutions per minute, right there on the second line, and then watts on the top, king, the power, right? How much work is being done. So we've got, again, turn it on, we've got a light bulb that shouldn't need anymore on this particular bike because it's just going to stay illuminated. You've got on the top, it's going to toggle between kilojoules and kilocalories, and I could spend a lot of time talking about that, but I'm not going to talk about it right now. But we'll toggle back and forth. And ultimately what that is going to tell you is how much work you did and how much energy it cost you to do that work. In other words, how many calories you burned. And how we got to that number is the kilojoules. But again, we have left side live, right side averages per stage. Every time you hit the stage button, it acts like a stopwatch. It will never erase all your data. It will always keep your data by pushing the average end button. So a lot of writers will sometimes that don't understand how this works will be afraid to touch the stage button and say, you know, I don't want to lose, you know, my average. I want to see how many miles I'm going. So they won't use that feature, and they really should, because it's really important when we're doing certain drills or intervals to measure interval to interval rather than just, you know, mashing it all together in the averages of the whole class. So again, we'll dig into that a lot deeper, but that's the basics of your console. The next feature we want to talk about are the Stages road bars. We'll talk more about riding positions next week, but right now, just know that these are their names: the flats, the hoods, the drops, and the horns. Those are not made up names. Those are cycling names. They're not made up in any way. Those are just what they're called on a bike. So I would get used to using that terminology. Bless you, because that is something that is just universal. It's not going to be made up by, you know, there are some companies that have offered that have hand positions and things like that. We are not going to do that. We'll dig into that again also later, but ultimately those are the positions on the road bars. There's also a fifth position on some of our bikes that at Lifetime we have that aero bar, aerodynamic, right, which is going to be used very sparingly, and we'll talk about why. It's very sport specific, but we'll talk about that next week. Just for now, you know where they are. This is the sprint shift, also known as the quick shift. So we have, what it does is it adds a consistent increase in resistance relative to wherever you started. So what it does is it adds or drops resistance very quickly. So bottom line, if you start with nothing on the blue dial, nothing will happen when you move that lever. It will just feel like the same. If you have a lot on the blue dial, a lot will happen. It will happen consistently. There are 3 ways of explaining what this does. I like the most simple way, which is to call it a switch. That amplifies whatever you already have. If you really want something technical, and again, please, 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 please don't say this to your writers, because it just is extra information that they don't need. It moves the magnets with each position change about 2 centimeters closer to the wheel, which means it gets harder relative to where you started. And if you want to be really specific, it does add approximately a turn and a half. Again, what that really does, if you tell people that, is it just confuses people, or it makes them think that they should, they don't understand. It gets us in the mindset of telling people how many turns to add, which is something that we'll discuss. You never tell them how many turns to add, because you don't know where they need to be, where they need to start, and what they need to challenge them, or what they don't need, right? So we'll dig into that more, but ultimately that is your resistance dial. So you've got the blue dial that is your primary resistance mechanism, and then that quick shift or sprint shift is going to add or take away that resistance very fast, which is brilliant for things like intervals where you're pushing very hard and then you go back to recovery. For those of you teaching a choreography style, you could actually go back and forth between 2 rhythms very quickly by going, let's say you're out of the saddle with a heavier, with a quick shift in the middle, and you're doing a, you know, on the half beat, and then you switch to the left and go double time. So it is actually does have application in rhythm formats as well. But that's what it does, and we can again answer more questions on that later. We're just talking about the guts tonight. All right, now the basics of the bike fit, super important. The primary purpose of the bike fit is injury prevention, increased comfort, enhanced power production, and an effective cardiovascular workout. We are not trying to recreate race conditions, right? As you learned in your modules, getting a proper bike fit it takes a lot of time and money. So we're not going to look for that. But if you can recall from your learning, what are the two, let's see, what are the two primary objectives of the Stages Fit?
Start on time.
Yes. And?
Get everybody in the safe zone.
Environment.
Very good. Get everybody in the safe zone. So the safe zone, we want everybody in the safe zone, and we want to start class on time. And that is, so we have a system for that, right? And that is the Stages Fit. So real quick, I'm going to pop back over to show a couple things. We'll look at the Stages Fit, and then we'll wrap for tonight. So the Stages Fit is, how many steps in the Stages Fit? Anybody remember? 5. Do you like how I telegraphed that for you? All right. Cool. All right. Hang on. Let's get you back here. So we got 5 steps to the Stages Fit. And the safe zone, again, is that reference of the knee and the hip position. Ultimately, I've never in my life been one that's going to measure the degrees. So luckily, the Stages Fit does that for you by getting 90% of the riders in the safe zone if you follow the protocol, right? So you want that that's the knee angle we're looking for, just a very soft bend in the knee with a flat foot at the bottom. We want that hip and torso angle to be between 40 and 60 degrees, which again, you know, what you're looking for is not upright and not so far forward that they're, especially unless they're a competitive cyclist, they're used to that position. But generally, we don't want them to be uncomfortable, but they do need to get their hip angle proper so they can actually get some power out of their pedal stroke, which we'll discuss next week. We also are looking for that position of the knee, so the front knee tracking. Super important that we get the knee in the right line, and that means what we say in cycling KOPS, or knee over pedal spindle. So if you look down at the line, that blue or that teal line, aqua, whatever color it is, dropping from the middle of the knee and landing straight over basically the instep into the pedal spindle. So everybody can see that. That's what we're looking for. And bike fit is critical for so many reasons. What goes wrong here? What's the most common error most riders make? You can just verbal me.
Seat too low.
Seat too low. Absolutely, Tyler. And you know why? I know why. I just was on the bike path running the other day, and I realized why everybody's seats are too low in the damn indoor cycle class, because they're all on their like whatever huffy bikes out there, and their knees are all on the outside. We've got to understand that cycling for just recreation and cycling for fitness on purpose requires a very different level of precision, right? And intent to get the right intensity and to get the efficacy. So super important that we do that. What is it possible for the handlebars to be too high?
Yes.
Yes, it is. Thank you. It is very possible for the handlebars to be too high. What else? What else are we going to get from being in the right position? More power and as much comfort as possible, right? Safety, injury prevention. But they'll tend to sit their seat too low. They'll tend to put their handlebars too high. We'll talk about some exceptions to when that happens, but mostly we want to make sure that we follow these. So the next common error, rather, or the saddle's too low, they lose power, and we can have knee problems. If the saddle's too high, it's very easy to spot. It's much easier to spot a saddle too high, but you're gonna see their leg overstretched and their hips rocking side to side. And if the handlebars are too high, once again, they lose power. We just talked about that. So food for thought: at 90 RPM for 60 minutes, a rider will go through 5,400 repetitions. Having proper form is essential. This is a repetition activity. So the keys to the fit: the Stages bike is designed so that when seat height is correct and the fore and aft is in the zero position, 90% of the population will be in the safe zone. No need for the heel checks, plumb lines, any of the stuff that you've seen in the past. So we check the bike fit always from a riding position. You cannot tell if they're not riding, and that always means they have to have their hands on their handlebars. Sitting upright and not holding on is not going to tell us what we need to know about their riding position. The 3 possible scenarios where you might want to recommend the handlebars coming up a little higher: pregnancy, back issues, and senior populations. And when I say back, I also might mean neck issues for people. All right, guys. So there's your stages fit. I'm going to pop ahead and we're going to pick this up. Oops. Actually, we can get through this. As a general rule, the seat should be as, anybody?
High.
High, as comfortably possible with the feet
Flat.
flat. Yep. And the pedal stroke at the bottom of the pedal stroke, and minimal what?
Hip rocking.
Hip rocking. Good job. And that's what the stages fit's going to get us to do. So there we go. If I had you with me or you had a bike, I would have you go through this, but you're going to have to do it on your own. We're going to talk about pedal stroke next week. I'm going to move that to next week and let you guys out for tonight. But homework would be, if you have a bike, take yourself through the steps of a fit. Again, if you don't have a stages bike, approximate it, right? But look for yourself. If you have access to a bike, check your own fit. You know, really practice with that. Even better, practice with someone else from 6 feet away. That's what we want. We want to empower your students to be able to fit themselves and to know how to do it themselves. So it's helpful to describe, and that will help you with your coaching too. So if you've got somebody in your house that's bored, fit them on your bike and see how they do, and then watch. So go through the 5 steps of your stages fit. And then if you can, pay attention to your pedal stroke, and we'll come back and talk about this next week. But ultimately, if you go through the full pedal stroke properly, you're going to engage the muscles much more effectively and reduce the potential for injury. So anyway, if you don't have a bike, try your best to recall what you've observed in yourself and others, and make this the first thing you do once you're back on the bike. And next week, I'll try to see if I can set up my bike in here, and I'll just show you what it looks like when it goes wrong. All right, that's where we are tonight. How are we feeling? So far, so good?
So far, so good.
Okay, well, I will hang out and answer any questions that you all have. But if you're ready to head back into your evening, once again, what you're going to do is go through that module, maybe review it again, review what happens, what is really important about fit, that's important, what muscles are working. I will send you that. I am also going to send you a little bit of a primer for next week to get us ready to talk about the science stuff. Because, hey, again, my favorite quote, what else are we going to do? So we'll go through some basic stuff on some of the energy systems to get you prepped to discuss next week.
Okay.
Any questions anybody else has?
Nope. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. And if you didn't take my survey yet, go take my survey.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great job.
You great job. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to have so much fun, you guys. I mean, come on. When else can you see cat? I didn't get did my cats make some appearances? I couldn't see myself, so.
One cat did.
One cat, okay. Well, I've got 2 large Maine Coons.
I have a Savannah.
So you'll get to know Danny and Dom. Pets are welcome as long as they're calm. All right, guys. Have a great night, and don't hesitate to email me if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.